Hare Krishna. Is caffeine addiction a sin? Answer: not exactly a sin. The important point is that it is not conducive for our spiritual growth. Now, ultimately, sin is not exactly a boxed category which we should stay away from, and outside that we can do anything and everything. We shouldn't be paranoid about sin. The important point is that sin, the concept of sin, is something which enables us to stay away as a healthy choice, to stay away from things that are harmful for our own growth, for our spiritual evolution. So now, those activities which are destructive to others in a very gross way, they are considered sinful, and those should be avoided. For example, meat eating, intoxication, gambling, illicit sex. These are considered grossly sinful and they need to be avoided. Beyond that, other activities which are detrimental to our spiritual growth, we avoid them. Now, caffeine is known to be an intoxicant, a mild intoxicant, and we avoid that because we want to minimize the intoxication and illusion that afflicts us. We are souls, we are parts of God, and we are meant to rejoice in lasting happiness at the spiritual level of consciousness. So from the spiritual level of consciousness, our consciousness has come down to the material level, and at the material level we are bound to seeking material pleasures and enduring material miseries and continuing on in the world of repeated birth and death. We want to rise out of this world, and those things which bind us to this level of consciousness, we want to avoid those things. So any form of intoxication, even if it be a mild intoxication, that actually increases our illusion and makes us feel good without actually becoming good. To become good means to rise from the material level of consciousness to spiritual level of consciousness. To merely feel good means to just create some external of physical or chemical or whatever stimuli by which we tend to temporarily feel good. So in that sense, the pleasure from caffeine is like tickling. It's a temporary pleasure, but it's not actual substantial pleasure, and it doesn't last for long. Rather, it perpetuates the illusion, it perpetuates our dependence on caffeine, and once it becomes an addiction, then it becomes a pseudo shelter. It becomes a false shelter through which, instead of going closer to God and seeking shelter in God, through that caffeine addiction we stay locked in an unsatisfying solution which keeps us away from the truly satisfying solution, truly satisfying shelter of God. So it's unhealthy, of course, from a physical point of view also. Excess of any item, and excess of especially caffeine, is unhealthy. But beyond that, it's unhealthy for our spiritual growth, and so that's why we avoid it. At one level, we could say it is sinful because it involves disruption of the ecology, because a large tracts of land which could be used to maintain the ecological balance, to grow staple grains, for solving the starvation problem in the world, all those amounts of land are misdirected for cultivating substances like coffee or tea, and that is disruptive to the ecology. So at one level we could say that dependence on caffeine and addiction to caffeine contribute to the disruption of ecology, and in that sense they are violence to the ecology and they are sinful. But beyond that, so it can be violence to our body, it can be a violence to our ecology, but most importantly it can actually be violence to our soul, because it locks our consciousness at a level of temporary illusory comfort and prevents us from growing spiritually and finding shelter in God, which is the only lasting shelter, which is the only source of lasting happiness. Thank you. Hare Krishna.